West, y'all.
We've got gun teams, but mate, Joey, mate, I'll get you to chime in. We'll talk about Samoa in the later pool, but we've already talked about Tonga. Mate, Fiji, is that probably we're a Pacific podcast, is that the best chance for our Polynesian teams to get somewhere?
Mate. Oh, mate. I am really confident about Fiji's chances in this World Cup, but also Tonga and Samoa, but at the same time, because of what Fiji did to England, and let's not just gloss past the fact that they had that historic win at Twickers in front of England's own crowd, beat the home team, England, by 30 points to 22. Oh, mate, it was just so nice to see our brothers from across the way, our Fijian brothers, just get the result. And they did it in a way that was, you couldn't question. You couldn't say, oh, what a fluke, right? Because they worked for it. They had the skills. They just had the willpower, and they showed us that Fijian flair that they're well known for, that Pacific Island rugby is well known for. And they've just done it consistently over the years, and they've done it at every World Cup. And we've seen glimpses of brilliance in every World Cup by individual players in Fiji, in the Fijian team. And that game was no different. And I'm looking forward to those types of moments of brilliance where we'll look back on this 2020 World Cup and go, yep, I remember that happened when Fiji did that thing. You just remember those moments, whether or not they won those particular games where those moments happened. You just remember. You remember the tries that were scored. You remember how they scored it. You remember the flair in which they got the ball out to the wing. And you just smile because Fiji is just a happy-go-lucky nation. They have really good supporters who support them through thick and thin. Not to say that the other Pacific Island nations don't, but when you think of Fiji and their fans, you think, oh, yeah, happy, smiley, always celebrating, always a game, win or lose. So that's really fascinating. I'm looking forward to more of that. And I guess two players that I really want to see do well. I'm not sure if Joshua Tuisova is there or what happened to him in that England game, why he missed it, whether it be through injury. I'm sure you know, Roger. And the other player is Radradra. I want him to fire alongside them. They did so well, and it was so nice to see that midfield pairing, and I'm looking forward to more of that because I think that is a masterstroke in terms of the selection of those two players in those two positions for Fiji. And if you can just firing on the outside of that, oh my God, we will be spoiled for entertainment. So looking forward to Fiji doing well and taking a big scalp again.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Tuisova was mentioned in that game against England. He was unavailable for some reason, but he's part of the Rugby World Cup squad. So imagine him on the flanks there, on the wing, Semi Radradra. But my player to watch out for is the young fly half for the Fiji team is Caleb Muntz. Ooh. So it's an interesting one. So he's born and bred in New Zealand, Hamilton Old Boy, but he qualifies for Fiji through his grandparents. So he speaks fluent Te Reo, but he's played for Fiji. So he's been playing. So it's through his grandmother who's from Fiji, but he's fluent in Te Reo. So it's interesting. So he first played for Fiji back in 2019, but it wasn't considered a test. It was just against a Barbarians outfit. But then he plays for the Draw. So he's never played NPC in New Zealand. Not that I can see and I can't recall, but yeah.
Is Bunce like Frank Bunce?
No, Muntz.
Months.
Muntz, yeah. Caleb Muntz, yeah. So he's he's going to be one to watch. He's only played 4 times, so pretty much debuted for Fiji this season in those lead-up games, and then to be a part of that historic win against England. He's on a high coming into this World Cup as the whole team in the squad. So I think after that result, a lot of teams will be put on notice, especially in this pool. So Australia, it's no given that they're going to be able to, historically, similarly to what, the English mindset was, that they should have taken care of Fiji because that's what's always happened in the past.
Mm.
And so we'll see how Wales and Australia have to try and handle, the flying Fijians. But then, I'm excited about Georgia, just like you mentioned, Joey. They're a pretty good team. They've beaten Samoa a few times. But, they've been in the World Cup since 2003 and they've only become stronger and stronger. And then I sort of go back to what you mentioned, Stacey, about Fiji needing more sort of assistance in getting regular game time with Tier 1 nations. Well, we talked about it on the pod a few years ago when they had the inclusion of Georgia and Fiji in some sort of Six Nations or I don't know what competition it was, but they were included. But there was only a one-off, right? It was only a one-off. So, and that's where, Italy will always fight, and Italy have got the resources to fight it, is that, no, they deserve to be in the Six Nations. How can a team like Georgia, they have to, if Georgia's in that B tier, the second tier of the Six Nations, as you have, there's got to be some promotion relegation because you can't keep leaving a team like Georgia out. So where do they get the first tier experience from? Where do they get regular game time with other top teams around the world? Because the Six Nations are just going to get stronger and stronger as they play more and more against each other. They've got professional teams. A lot of the Georgian teams, squad members, are playing in France, are playing in England, they're playing in Europe. So that's where they're getting the experience. They don't have a strong enough domestic competition, similarly to Argentina, who have to then go abroad and play, and their national squad members are playing professionally abroad. So that's why I'm really excited about Italy to be able to let players like Montana, who was playing for the Rebels this year in Super Rugby, and yet they've selected him for the Rugby World Cup. And is that going to be something of the norm? Or are they going to change the eligibility rules given how strong the Pacific Island nations are coming into this Rugby World Cup? Are they going to then, make it even more difficult post this World Cup, depending on what the outcomes are? Because now they're going to fear what they try to prevent from happening is our Pacific Island nations beating these top tier 1 teams, let alone Northern Hemisphere teams. Because we've seen England now lose. We've seen Ireland come close to losing against Samoa. So will the eligibility rules change post this World Cup? Or are they going to let Georgia get stronger, Fiji get stronger, Samoa get stronger with regular play and not these makeshift sort of play against Samoa A, Tonga A competitions?
Yeah, good thought there, Roger. I agree with that. So that's where it gets interesting. And Fiji, the best way for them to make their case is just keep doing what they're doing. If they beat England, if they get out the pool, then it's sort of like, well, come on, you got to support us here. They can get brushed off if you're constantly getting beaten by these tier 1 nations and you're sort of not getting out the pool. And they're like, well, you're a tier 2 nation, you don't deserve to get recognised and get these higher games. Once you start beating them regularly and doing good in World Cups, that's where the IRB, or World Rugby as they're called, have to take notice. So that's going to be interesting, and I'm gunning for Fiji as well, just for that reason. I want them to get meaningful games and improve. Roger, you brought up a great point about where their players are playing. They're playing in the best teams in the world, and the Drua, well, they're in their second season and they're already getting competitive, making the playoffs. So the talent's there. They just need regular games and elite level games to improve. So hopefully they can get that, and that will happen if they get out the pool. So I'm thinking Australia and Fiji are the two teams that I think will get out the pool. And yeah, good thoughts there, boys. On that pool, we've got some guys there who probably wouldn't normally get a mention. Some of the Georgian guys and some of the Fijian guys. So yeah, good. Thanks, boys, for sharing that stuff.
I'm just wondering, Stace, whether Joey, are you still backing this Australian team to win?
All the way, brother.
Oh,
All the way. Because look, let's not forget. Let's not forget that little piece of history that is Eddie Jones' piece of history, where
he's going to be history after this World Cup.
he steered an unknown Japanese team to beat a powerhouse South Africa team at the World Cup. So miracles have happened before, and they can happen again for the little general.
You know what, Joey? You know, after they made a movie about that epic sort of game and World Cup, where they got Tim Wood and Morrison playing Eddie Jones, I reckon if they do well in this World Cup and they win it, as you say, I reckon you should play Eddie Jones for the his second film.
Very.
Joey. Yeah. Just shave your head.
Ma'oma Eddie Jones.
Oloma Eddie Jones.
Nah, Eddie Jones reminds me of. Do you remember Fezzik? Fezzik from Princess Bride.
Oh.
Inconceivable. That's what it reminds me of.
Yes. Oh.
Nice. Yeah, I think that Pool C is going to be probably the most interesting pool because there's sort of 3 or 4 teams who are evenly matched, so that's going to be really good. Yeah,
but that's the thing about Australia. Despite their bad results coming into this World Cup, you just never know. But hey, I think if they do well at this World Cup, it's because of Hansen, eh? It's not because of Eddie, it's because of Hansen, eh? If we're true to form to the way that you guys talk about the All Blacks, hey, are you guys gonna give? Are you guys, or is it Hansen's fault? Is it Hansen's fault?
You're just looking for a way for Fozzie to get in on those riches, mate.
You know what? Fozzie's going to rub it in. He's going to do a breakdance at the Rugby World Cup final.
Oh, nice.
I tell you what, Rog, I take back every bad thought I ever had of Fozzie if he wins this World Cup.
Too late. God's heard your bad thoughts about him.
It's fine. Everyone's forgiven through Jesus Christ who saves us.
Amen.
Nice. Yeah. Nice, boys. Good thoughts there. I think Pool C is going to be, like I said, the most interesting. I still think Australia, just given their pedigree, they've got their World Cup results have been outstanding. So I think they'll win that pool. I don't say they have much confidence. And I think Fiji, they can beat Wales. Wales are poor. And Georgia, who will be in that running as well. So 4 teams early in that running.
Excuse me.
And I'll pick those 2. So we'll look forward towards Pool D. Yeah, mate, if we've got 2 essentially pools of death, this might be the bloody pool of life. There's some Gaia teams in this one. So we've got Argentina. They're not too bad, actually. 6th. England, who have fallen off a cliff at 8th. Samoa at 12th. Japan at 14th. And Chile ranked 22nd in the world, mate. So, Rog, mate, how are you seeing that one, and who do you think's going to get out of this one?
Well, you know what? I was sort of, we're always going to have a bit of a sentimental place for Samoa to do well, whether it be in between World Cups or even at a World Cup. Is sort of like high expectation, depending on their form. Even if their form is bad coming into a World Cup, we still have high hopes for Le Manue. It was interesting that they've gone with some of the squad members that they have. For me, they've done away with Jack Lamb, yet carrying on with Alamanda Matunga, given that he's still a current Super Rugby player.
Yep.
Ray Nuia, shout out to Ray missing out on the Rugby World Cup squad, but I believe and I hope Ray's journey with the Samoan side isn't over yet. And I reckon he's just going to keep on plugging away, plying his trade wherever he is next year, whether it be with Moana Pacifica or elsewhere. But I think hopefully he's not done with the Royal Blue yet, because I think he's still young enough to try and get to a World Cup post this one. Saying that, I think England have got a lot to answer for given that result against Fiji over the weekend. But I think they're a team that, again, just, doesn't need to be said about their out-and-out professionalism, the resources that they have at their disposal. So they have to be one of the top two in this pool. It's a matter of who's going to be joining them. Argentina, Samoa, and then on their day, Japan, who've done it before to get out of a pool. Only once before, but with England, they've also managed not to get out of a pool once before.
That's right. They have.
And so it's all up in the air. We talk about Pool C being a pool of death of Australia, Wales, Fiji, and Georgia. But then, could this be the first time that we've had two potential pools of death where you've got 4 teams in either pool that've got a chance to get out? So Argentina have improved immensely over the years, or they've had a win against the All Blacks. So on their day, but then then they've lost badly the week after. So I mean, Argentina on their day, and this is what it's about pool play. But then you got teams like Japan, Argentina, Samoa that will be looking at do or die even during pool play, because they know that every result matters as to how deep into the competition they go. England have been there, many times to get out. But like mentioning that one time that they missed out on getting out was 2015. Every other time they've managed to get out since the inception of the Rugby World Cup. But then, if you're judging it on Rugby World Cups, you go back 4 years ago where, the upset of the World Cup from a New Zealand perspective was knocking New Zealand out. So, and then they couldn't quite back up that performance in the final against South Africa. So it's really, but then, you look at their ranking, 8th place at the moment in terms of world rankings. Are they well prepared for the World Cup? I guess one could say from an English point of view, it is probably not too good looking, not looking too good coming into this cup. Marcus Smith, I don't think he's the answer. And a lot of people have put a lot of investment and time and then also a lot of pressure on the young fella to be the answer for them. But he didn't start on the weekend, but when he comes on, he's obviously got he plays with a lot of passion on his sleeve. But at the same time, I think he throws his body around. He's quite a lightweight, but you can't question him on his attempts to make tackles on bigger blokes. But does he have the out and out, skill to try and be the general that guides the team around to try and replicate what they achieved in 2003? Johnny Wilkinson's 20 years, so anniversary for them, 20-year anniversary. They'd want to try and emulate what the 2003 team did. They've been to 2 finals since and haven't quite come up trumps. So, but I'm sort of banking on Samoa to get a result because they haven't been out of pool play since 1995.
Wow.
And that's, 91, 95 was their quarterfinal berths. 99 was an interesting year because they tried something different there where they had a quarterfinal playoff and that was against Scotland and they lost that. So I think it was, I don't know why they had quarterfinal playoffs, but that can't be counted as a quarterfinal. So yeah, it's been since 1995
Gee, didn't realise it had been that long. So good thoughts there, Roger. And I like that point that you make because there's a lot of teams that are evenly matched. So Argentina, England, Samoa, and Japan, all four of those teams will be going to that World Cup thinking they can get out of this pool.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets quite interesting because two of them ain't going to get out. So
exactly, it's going to be and I guess that brings us to a point. We've arrived to a point where you can't just like we look at South Africa and Ireland, or because even there's Scotland could be another one that comes out of that one. Then you got three: Australia, Wales, and Fiji, and potentially a Georgia, and then even in the New Zealand and South Africa, New Zealand and France, that's self-explanatory. A few World Cups back, every pool was like that. It was top two stood out. There was a vast gap between the top two, and then our sentimental that we had with the island nations, hoping that which island nation is going to represent at quarterfinals if they get through. And so it's good that we've arrived at a place where it's not a given who's going to win the World Cup. It's not a given who's going to advance and go deep into the competition. And I guess it comes down to rugby, becoming strong and, where a lot of players, whether if they're not playing in the domestic competitions, they're playing abroad. We sometimes can be quite one-eyed in the Southern Hemisphere where Super Rugby is all we're exposed to on the regular. But for a lot of guys to go abroad and apply their trade in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, France is, benefits the international game, benefits the international teams that they represent. So, and then it creates a bigger player pool at that for each of those nations. So, yeah, so it makes for an interesting, strong World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think this could be the most competitive World Cup we've seen for a while, possibly ever. But, Pool D, Joey, Roger made a good point that four teams will rate themselves as getting out, and obviously Samoa's in there. So, how do you see this pool, and who do you think's coming out of that one?
Well, I think of those five teams in Pool D, the ones with the biggest point to prove are England at the moment, especially coming off that loss to the Flying Fijians, or Fijians as they would say. I think they really need to fire up in this World Cup, and obviously their first milestone will be coming out of the pools, because there have been World Cups in the past where they haven't got out of the pool, like the one in New Zealand, the World Cup in New Zealand, where it seemed like they came over for a jolly, and Manu Tuilangi got in trouble for diving into the into the viaduct water there. Argentina, I think they may top the pool if England aren't careful, because I think Japan or Samoa will be really backing themselves and liking their chances to get an upset on one of those two teams. I'm guessing they'll be targeting Argentina, and a weakened England team is not a bad target either for Samoa or Japan to try and beat. Chile, obviously, this is their first World Cup, and they'll be looking to prove a point that they belong, or they will use this as a learning experience and try and get into the next World Cup, wherever that is. Is it in Australia, I think it is?
Yep. It's in Australia.
So they'll be looking to, get the experience from this World Cup and use that as a way to get into the next World Cup. And obviously the next World Cup is where they'll be looking to compete on a better level. Samoa, like Rod said, we're kind of always hopeful that Samoa will do well in World Cups. And, obviously there's a bit of bias being that we are Samoan, and we just want our team to do well. We want them to go as far as possible, but we also want them to not hold back. So I'm guessing England will be a nice one for them to win. And if they do win against England and don't go any further than the pools, than the pool games, then they may consider that success still. But I would like to see them in the quarterfinals. Who knows if they do make the quarterfinals and they go from there? Where they go from there is up to them. But at the same time, I think, the tier 2 nations in this World Cup will need to really step it up if they want to, I guess, make moves in between World Cups and get the respect that they so well deserve. I think Argentina will need to keep their up in. They've got some key players in key positions, especially fly half, who I think is experienced enough now. Nicolas Sanchez. I think he's a key player of theirs, and they've got what's the guy that played in the Crusaders for Argentina? That guy, the captain. So they've got him, and they've got Geronimo de la Fuente. He's one to look out for. He's a talented player in the centres there for them, outside of Sanchez, and I think he'll be key for them as well. England, they've got the likes of Owen Farrell, although he's been in the news lately for the wrong reasons. I think he's key to their backline firing and getting that ball over to Manu Tuilagi to do his thing. In the forwards, I would be looking out for, Mr. Consistent, which is, at the moment, in World Rugby, Maro Itoje. I've been a naysayer of his in the past because I didn't rate him back then, but I want to do it now because I think he's earned my respect just for the longevity side, and I hate longevity in terms of debates and in terms of ranking players, but I think his longevity speaks higher than, say, the longevity of a WRJ. But, Alan Jones, much respect if you ever listen to this podcast, but Maro is my guy for the moment. But yeah, Manu Tuilagi, I really hope he fires in this World Cup. I think this is the last chance to add to his legacy in terms of, because his career has been kind of hamstrung by all the injuries that he's had in crucial times. And I think this is a World Cup where, if he's fully fit, he really needs to fire up and get England firing as well and inspiring his team around and do great things. They really need to bounce back first and foremost from that loss to Fiji. They're probably feeling really dejected at the moment, and I think they just need to regroup and get back to winning ways.
Yeah, nice there. Looks like you're both picking England to get through, and I'm not convinced they, like you said, there's 4 teams who are rating themselves, and someone's going to have to miss out. But maybe I just went with my heart, but I thought Samoa had a legit chance of getting out.
I think they do. I think they do, Stacey. It's just, and I caution that England, they will be favourites. Holistically, they'll be a favourite to get out of that pool. However, we talk about how they failed to make it out in 2015, so that could potentially happen again as well. And I think this has been a big wake-up call, this result against Fiji last week. So if they keep underestimating some of these teams, that'll be a result for them again. So potentially it could happen. They might not make it out again because they've got some teams in their pool that could cause an upset on their day. And so they'll be well aware of the fighting power that Argentina bring, and that also Samoa, the danger that they can present in Japan. So it's not going to be not going to be a walk in the park for them.
Nice, yeah, I agree with that. That pool's actually all the pools except for the All Blacks pool look like they're going to be contestable at least. So it makes it a really interesting World Cup.
But then just going back in that pool against with France and New Zealand, we saw how in 2007 they had an easy pool, and then they failed to get out. Oh, they failed to fire in that quarterfinal. So it has its has its pros and cons. The pros being that they can be experimental with their squad. They rotate, give other players a rest, and just to get through the pool play. But then build a bit of cohesion with, and hopefully by the Rugby World Cup quarterfinals, they're rearing to go. They don't quite have that luxury because come quarterfinal, it's knockout and it's going to be against another top 4 nation. So, and whoever it is, it's either South Africa or Ireland, or will anyone else come into the fray for that one?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, like you say, the All Blacks France is the opening match on the 9th of September. So the All Blacks are going to be tested straight away. But then they're going to have a relatively easy run until the quarterfinal, which is on 15th of October. So that's a month and a bit of sort of far-assing around.
Yeah,
like you say, that 2007, that's how they had a similar thing happen to them back then. So hopefully history's not repeating itself, but I just thought that's a good point that you bring up, right? I thought shucks, should look a bit deeper into that. But yeah, that's good, boys. It looks like we're going quite a bit over time, so I don't want to drag it on too long. So it looks like, based on the predictions, who do we think was coming out of the pool? Sorry, so we've got England, and who else do you think? Argentina? I'm just trying to do some quarterfinal matchups quickly based on our predictions, so we can sort of.
Well, if we think with our heart and hope Samoa come out of there.
Yeah, England, Samoa.
England, Samoa. I don't know, Joey.
Oh, I don't know. The fact that Fiji have now exploited England's weaknesses, I'm picking Argentina, Samoa.
Oh, now we're on the same page. I'm going for the same too. So that's majority.
But then the reality check for me, is that as much as I want Samoa to get out of pool play to do well, I always get disappointed. I'm disappointed.
So, and that's your theory is don't build your hopes up too high at the start so you don't get let down. Okay, Roger. I don't want to go with that theory.
Oh, yeah. I just always get let down with, not for them not reaching their potential or not performing to, the quality and the caliber of players that they've had in the past. And whether that's a cohesion thing, whether they haven't had time to gel and to get used to combinations, or is it a reverse on that because now they've got players playing professionally all over the world, and that they've had enough time. They've had a few games under their belt leading into this World Cup. So, I guess it's your hope is there anyway, and then I guess for us, we just want them to emulate what happened in 91, 95, get to a quarterfinal, and then we see how we go from there. Because if they make the quarterfinal, if they come in second, then they play either, who was it?
Well, they'll play the Australia pool. So if we say Australia's going to win that pool, they'll play Australia if they Samoa comes second.
Oh, right.
Australia have been pretty ordinary as well. So the semi-finals looming.
Yeah. No, and but that's the thing, because then if Fiji comes second, then Fiji and Samoa miss each other, right? If Samoa comes second.
Yeah.
But then if Fiji come first, then But whoever it is, Samoa will be playing either those the four
Yeah.
If they come second as well.
Yeah. I just want to get some new memories. I don't want to be that old guy who says, "Oh, I remember when Samoa was good back in '95."
Well, that's the thing. You saw. But there's a lot of the generation that love the manu who don't have those memories, don't have, having seen that happen. So they, so they can only go off what memories I've had of more recent teams.
Nice. All right, boys, that was quite a comprehensive look at the pool stages. So it looks like we're going with the, sort of the majority here. We think who's going to get out the pool stages. So out of the Pool A, Pool B side, we've got New Zealand, France, and South Africa and Ireland. And on the other side of the draw, we've got Australia, Fiji, Argentina, and Samoa. So it looks like one side is definitely stronger than the other side. We won't go through all the matchups, but we'll just get a prediction on the finalists and a winner. So one from each side. So the first side was New Zealand, France, South Africa, and Ireland. And on the other side, Australia, Fiji, Argentina, and Samoa. So one from each side for the final and one winner. Mate, Joy, did you want to have a crack first at that one?
Yep. So we're going head to head on all those ones you named?
No, I don't think we've got the matchups, but just who from each side's going to get through to the final. So New Zealand, France, South Africa, and Ireland. One of them is going to get through to the final. And on the other side, Australia, Fiji, Argentina, and Samoa. One of them will be in the final from the other side. So just who you think is going to get to the final and a winner.
Okay. So because I've taken England out of the equation, Australia now has a real chance of making the final.
Don't laugh.
I kind of know why Roger's laughing, but at the same time, I
just want to see you in the movie.
I think he needs to take me seriously.
Okay. Sorry, Eddie.
And on the other side, whether or not New Zealand win or lose that first game against France will be telling, but it's also irrelevant because if you base it on the 2019 World Cup, we beat South Africa win the World Cup. That kind of negates that argument. Right. So I think even if New Zealand lose against France, New Zealand will go on to make the final against Australia, and history will repeat. History will repeat where they are in the final together, but then a miracle will happen and Australia will win.
Nice. I like it.
And I see Roger shaking his head both internally and externally.
We were talking about the Eddie Jones factor because that's a legit thing. Where he's always got one result each World Cup, and that'll be the one if he beat the All Blacks in the final soon. He's got one surprise. That might be it.
This could possibly, like Rog, if you think about it, this win by Australia over New Zealand in the World Cup final in 2023, this could wipe all those Bledisloe Cup losses since the last time Australia won the Bledisloe Cup. In my mind, anyway. If they do it, if they beat New Zealand in the final this year, I think they have grounds for an argument to say, we beat you guys in the World Cup final. So who cares about all those Bledisloes that we lost all those consecutive years?
Absolutely, that would go a long way in sort of having some sort of redemption effect on players, current players as well as players of the past that have never been successful at Eden Park since '86, I think it was. But
then you could say my lookalike, Eddie Jones, got one over your Fozzie, your dad.
Oh.
But see, the beauty of a comeback to what you've just put out there into the airwaves, Joey, is that before he left New Zealand shores, Richie Mo'unga, after the semi-final against the Blues, mentioned that rugby is not built on fairy tales. So
we'll see. We'll see. And Tana said this is not tiddlywinks, so we'll see. We'll see.
Nice. Mate, Rog, how are you seeing that one, the final matchup? So just FYI, we've got New Zealand, France, South Africa, and Ireland on one side of the draw. The other side, Australia, Fiji, Argentina, and Samoa. So one from each side going through to the final and then the winner.
Given that you got on one side, you got top four teams. Two of the top four is going to get knocked out.
Yep.
At quarterfinals. Two of the top four are going to get knocked out because there's top four in those two pools. So New Zealand and France, they can't meet again in the quarters, but they could effectively meet again in the semis.
Yes.
Jeez, that just sort of throws it out. You know, it
You
just
got to
makes
pick one of
you.
your teams. One of your teams to get out and one of your teams to get in.
They're both of my teams. Hey, I'm hoping sentimentally I want. Is it coming through?
Yeah, sorry.
Sentimentally, I want New Zealand to win because I want Foster to go out on a high, so he can flip the bird to New Zealand rugby and everyone else that doubted him.
Come on, man.
However, on the other hand, I want France to win because they're the most. They're probably the team that's lost it the most when they've been in. What do you call it? The most unlucky loser of
Probably
Rugby
one of
World
the
Cups.
best teams who's never won, you'd say.
Best team, that's the way to put it. The best team that's never won it. So I think they're due. This is the second time it's been in their neck of the woods. And they had a great win the first time against the All Blacks, and then they lost in the final the following week. That was the semi-final. Jonah Lomu scoring 2 tries in 99. And they do it this time around. They've got the team. No Intermac. That throws a bit of a spanner in the works with no Intermac. But they've still got good, well-established players. I sort of question the experience in a lot of these teams from this website because it's saying Ed Fido for Samoa has played 60-odd times for Samoa. I don't think he's played 60-odd times because I think that somehow it's been lost in translation. He's probably played that many times for the Sevens, but not the Manu Samoa. And then on Wikipedia it says he's only played 10 times. So I'm not too sure what the correct one is. But
what ain't the 60? I don't think so.
Yes, definitely not the 60 because that's only Census Johnson,
That's
Brian
Lima.
Yeah. So I think somewhere it's those records here are a bit incorrect. On the other side of the draw, sheesh. I'm going to have to say New Zealand make it to the final. New Zealand, France semi-final. New Zealand make it to the final, and they end up playing.
Say it. We want to see the Eddie
Wallabies.
Jones movie.
Just say it. The Wallabies. Far out. What's so hard about saying the Wallabies?
It's going to be England, All Blacks, redemption.
England aren't going to get out the pool stage.
If they get out of the pool, they're going to go all the way to the final. All Blacks get redemption for the last World Cup. If they don't make it out of the final, the pool, it's going to be dark horse Le Manu Samoa.
Oh, here we go.
Is that too far? Samoa making history.
Oh, bro, that'll be the dream. Those are my two teams, Samoa and the All Blacks as a supporter. Just,
Oh, Stacey's.
that'd be a dream.
Stacey, you need to turn your heater on, mate. You're frozen.
Oh, sorry, mate. Oh, can you see me all right? My internet might be playing up a bit.
Still here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
I was just saying, Rog, that would be my two teams as a supporter, New Zealand and Samoa, as unlikely as that is. So,
But imagine if Samoa, Argentina make it out, right? Say England miss out. Then it's going to be Australia, Fiji. They make it out of the pool C. They face off. Damn. Samoa against Australia. Samoa advance. Repeat what they did prior to another World Cup with another Tuilangi involved. They've got the team to do it. Looking at Taleni Sel, I forgot to mention Taleni Sel. He had an amazing game, and the way he can run from long range, from collecting the ball in the 22 and running it out, the way he did against who did they play? Against Ireland. It's I think they've got talented flankers, but then you've got Fritz Lee, you've got Alamanda Matunga to bring it to the fore as well. If they can use that sort of skill set. And Jordan Delfour, he had awesome impact coming off the bench too. So I think they're probably in their best position to go deep into the competition, I reckon. Okay, I'll stick with Samoa.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm rambling.
Samoa to make the final against the All Blacks. That would be a dream come true, man. And like I remember when they the Rugby League World Cup went to Samoa, everyone also had the flags out of the cars and all sorts of stuff. But if the Monu make it, I reckon it'll be even bigger, man. Flags and merch and all sorts of stuff going up. There'll be parties in the streets and everything, so that'll be a massive achievement. So the heart hopes that happens. The head doesn't think that there's much chance of that happening. Yeah,
well, that's like the head that. It's like the heart that Joey thinks that Australia is going to make the final.
Well, I'm sort of going to throw a spanner in the works because I agree with Joey, man. I think Australia is going to make the final. That other side, there's so many teams that are just out of form and just so out of whack. I think Australia just...
That's why it's up in the air. It could be any of those guys. It could be any which one. But Fiji, I think Fiji's got more of a chance.
I trust Eddie Jones and I trust Australia's pedigree.
Samoa's going to knock Samoa's going to knock Australia out in quarterfinals. Fiji's going to knock out Argentina. Fiji's going to knock out Argentina or England in that quarterfinal. So then Fiji and Samoa are going to be in the final, in the semi-final. So it's going to be a first time ever a Pacific Island nation is going to make the final.
Wow.
And then Samoa will still get praise. Fiji will get the praise as well and all the accolades that come with it for making a semi-final final. Whichever one, Samoa or Fiji, they make that final. Oh, heck. But then as long as New Zealand can still win it, and then New Zealand Rugby get their comeuppance, Fozzie goes off into the sunset, a happy man, and then hopefully not long after that, gets a knighthood because he deserves it.
Nice. See, because I'm actually going to plump for Ireland on that other side of the draw. I know they've got a horrible record of getting out the quarters, and they'll have the hardest quarter final playing New Zealand or France. Just Chucks, I've been really impressed with the way they played, the way they beat the All Blacks that other time. They've beaten they've beaten New Zealand, they've beaten France, they've beaten all the other people that are in the contender category. So they're ready. I know this
is their best chance.
Psychologically, it's going to be a big hurdle for them to get over that, never-ending knockouts of the quarters. I just see them as a team that can really kick on. So I'll pick Ireland to play Australia and Ireland to win it. So that's my team.
So they've never made it.
What we can all take is that it's going to be quite an open World Cup. Everyone's got different predictions and different sorts of stuff, so it's going to be quite interesting.
Interesting. So Ireland have never made it past the quarterfinal.
Yeah.
And if but then, given their recent post 2019, they've had the best run ever.
Right, exactly.
So they're a different beast in comparison to any of their World Cup history form. So, it's hard to argue that.
Right, so it looks like we can all say it's going to be quite an interesting World Cup and a very open World Cup. So there's not a lot of, I think if we'd done this podcast, say, 10, 15 years ago, we would all probably have the same answers: who's going to get out the pools, who's going to go fast. So the fact that everyone's got a bit different opinions tells you how much of a good tournament it's going to be. We're just about going to wrap up. I wouldn't mind getting using some of these predictions for our World Cup, for our TAB account, so might chuck a couple of bits on. We're just about to close up, and so I'll get some final thoughts from the boys. Mate, Joey, got anything you wanted to say just in closing up?
Yeah, I totally get all the naysayers that say, rugby isn't, or whatever, about fairy tales. But, it's Eddie Jones we're talking about here. Eddie Jones he's a master of conjuring up unlikelihoods. And it was unlikely that Japan were ever going to beat South Africa in this lifetime. They did it. Not only did they do it, they did it in extraordinary fashion. And they did it at a World Cup, right? So that's why I believe Australia could go all the way, given that they've had some really mediocre results as of late. But I think Eddie may have once again done the unthinkable and had a masterstroke in taking a young team that is inexperienced compared to previous teams, and he's taking a really big punt. And I hope he gets the reward for this massive risk. Because no risk, no reward. And the reward will be the World Cup if everything falls into place for him. And I think now's the time. This will add to Eddie Jones' legacy as a I don't know. Do we put him up in the put him up in the levels of Clive Woodward? Do we put him up in the levels of Bob Dwyer, Rod McQueen, those types of coaches, and the great Ted, and even Shag?
But
you put him up there.
Well, will he be? Because he's really got a World Cup, right?
Yeah.
So he's really in those.
Which one did he get? I can't recall. Has he got one? I think he was assistant coach for South Africa.
Yeah, he was an assistant coach. So that's a World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
As a head coach, not you doesn't have one. Was he the coach of Australian 03?
03 when they lost to England, he was the coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they talked to his pedigree. He's won one as an assistant. He was the coach of the final for England when they made it 2019. Coach of Australia when they made it final 2003.
Yeah,
coach of Japan when they beat South Africa, like Joy's mentioned.
So he's had moments. He's had moments.
Mate, he's had some. In terms of World Cups, he'd be up there as one of the best coaches that we've seen.
Yeah.
Just given his consistency.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice there, Joy. I've got Australia making the final, and if they do win,
yes,
Will Skelton, Polynesian brother, will be the guy who lifts the trophy aloft as Australia captain. So that's something for
I can't even believe Australia's even in this conversation.
Okay, so I've worked it out for you, Rog. I've worked it out for you. Okay, I've worked it out for you. So this is how it happens. Everyone, I've considered all the top placings and second placings in all the pools, and I've got to quarterfinal stages. Here's all the quarterfinalists in my book, potentially. Okay. Yeah. New Zealand versus Samoa, France versus Argentina, South Africa versus Australia, and Ireland versus, guess who? Fiji.
It can't happen though, eh?
Yep, I've worked it out. Semi-finals would be New Zealand versus Argentina, and the other one would be Australia, because they beat South Africa in the quarterfinals, versus Fiji. And then they'll beat Fiji in the semi-finals. Fiji have obviously done really well.
Fiji go to the semi-finals, cheapest. Oh, nice.
Yep, I got Fiji in the semi-finals.
I thought Pool A will play those in Pool B.
Oh yes, they will. So New Zealand, France.
Oh,
so they can't. Yeah, so Pool C and Pool D will be the.
Anyway, whatever. The semi-finals. The semi-finals will consist of those four teams:
falling apart.
New Zealand, Argentina, Australia, and Fiji. And Australia and New Zealand will win the semi-finals and meet in the final. However way they get there, they will get there.
Nice.
That's
so
it.
I think if we go to the majority,
I
think
we've got 2 New Zealanders for the next Australia game.
Oh, shut up, Siri.
Wickets in it.
What? Hey, technical difficulties here. Cam, can we just edit this whole thing?
even Siri just told me just now that my information is factually incorrect.
Yeah.
Siri was just listening to me.
Impossible.
Just looking at our predictions.
See, even Siri's doubting me.
Yeah. just looking at our predictions, so we've got 2 people who think New Zealand will make the final, and 2 of us who think Australia is going to make the final. So that's if we go for the majority, that looks like it's going to be the final at this point. But Rog, mate, I'll get you some final words in closing, brother.
Shout out to all the listeners, and hopefully we can do some pods during the Rugby World Cup and keep things updated there, and as it gets deeper into the competition. But just a special message also to Robbie and from Ranui 135 who listens in as well. A special mention to him, and we had a good conversation about how deep some of the Pacific Island nations will go into the competition. But also, quiero decir mucha suerte a todos los equipos sudamericanos en Uruguay, Chile, en Argentina. Vámonos, y just hope that they go well. The 3 South American teams. It's a massive representation for South America in this Rugby World Cup. It's a first. We've had 2, I think, at the most before, but to have Chile in there makes it a trio. So that's massive development in terms of rugby. And so just a special mention, wishing all the South American teams all the best. Vámonos.
Oh, nice. Nice, Rog. Put some flavour into the podcast. Always good.
Nei kele lofa español.
Nice, brothers. Yeah, I just wanted to mention I'm really looking forward to the World Cup. A lot of our predictions just tells you how wild it's going to be and how many teams are in with a chance of getting further or not getting out the pool. We're going to see some upsets. We're going to see some good teams who won't get out the pool stage. We're going to see some teams who not many people might think get to the playoffs, and that makes it probably the most competitive World Cup we've seen. And I'm really looking forward to it just because, we're in the NPC moment at the moment. And, mate, it's been a poor competition at the NPC. Little to no fanfare. Less than 1,000 people, I think, watched the Battle of the Bridge on Auckland against North Harbour. And you think about the great old days of how it was packed to the rafters. That's a sad indictment on their competition. So the World Cup can't seem enough for sort of a diehard rugby fan like myself.
And not to mention Manawatu winning against Auckland for the first time.
Yes.
At the Garden.
Yes. Unlucky.
Massive result.
Unlucky, yeah. And also Carlos Spencer's son played in there. That was his debut, so for Auckland. So, good to see, Generation Next coming on board. But yeah, I think that's us, boys. I'll say, the Counter Ruck is available through the usual podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple. I know Stitch is closed down now, so we're not on there anymore. YouTube, you can watch the podcast, so keep listening, watching, and don't forget to click subscribe. So, boys, Joy, Rog, mate, thanks for jumping on, boys, sharing your rugby knowledge and your enthusiasm. Cam's who's doing the editing for us. Thanks, boys, and we'll do it again soon.
Arriba.
Cheers.
Nice.